Metal. Metal! So a few years ago, I made a top 10 metal movies list that went all the way up to 11, and I still stand by most of that list. I think I only put Crank on there so I can make that speed joke. Just pretend number 11 was heavy metal, okay? Number 11 was heavy metal. But there were some oversights with that list, and some movies that have come out since then that deserve some recognition, so don't think of this as like the 11 runners-up. This is a mutual top 11. All of these movies legitimately deserve to be on the list, just they didn't end up there for whatever reason. So let's kick this shit off with...
You and I have a lot of work to do. Which is why I can't babysit your ass just because you like brutal fucking music.
Metal Lords. Metal Lords is basically Deathgasm without the zombies or the violence or any sort of unique visual style. But you know what? That makes for an okay movie. Kevin and Hunter are high school best friends in a metal band who have aspirations of winning the Battle of the Bands. All they need is a bassist. And as it happens, Kevin now has a crush on a cello player named Emily, which causes some strife between the two. Throw in Hunter's poor relationship with his father and Kevin making money playing for other bands, and you've got the perfect recipe for drama. It's far from a perfect film, it's pretty predictable plot-wise, and there's some awkward moments, though the leads are high school students, so it kinda makes sense. But there's some heart to it, it's got some funny cameos, and the soundtrack is killer. A mixed bag maybe, but still plenty to enjoy.
For us to have a cello player instead of a bass player would be completely gay. You've got to take all that in context.
Go ahead with your question.
Iron Maiden rules! White Lion sucks! Woo!
The WNF Halloween Special. IMDb claims this movie had a budget of $1,500. If that's true, that is insane. This movie has absolutely set the standard for no-budget filmmaking. And it's pretty metal to boot. Following the evening news, reporter Frank Stewart enters a house that was the site of brutal killings to contact the spirits locals claim live there, and along the way, spooky stuff begins happening. No spoilers, but the ending is perfect. And along the way, they drop plenty of little nuggets of metal fun. Yeah, it could probably be more metal, but it's a fun little Halloween romp that's still got a lot going for it. And hey, they just put out a sequel that promises even more metal antics, so if that one's more metal, pretend I put that here. I could see an argument that all the fake commercials are kind of a tone killer that take up too much of the movie, but personally, I love them. I think they keep the pacing suspenseful while adding a bit of humor to something clearly meant to be tongue-in-cheek. Overall, if you've never checked out the WNUF Halloween Special, this is the perfect time to do it.
Tired of all those commercials when all you want to do is rock out? Well, wait no more. With Feel the Steel, Board and Wax brings you all your favorite hits, including
I'll live the night you take, so give me what you got!
What sort of drugs?
What did I take?
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
The Sound of Metal. Oh yeah, you know what's fucking metal? Slow emotional dramas about a man losing his one passion in life and having to figure out where to go from here. Metal! Sound of Metal follows Riz Ahmed as Ruben, a heavy metal drummer who's losing his hearing after years of playing. Despite having metal in the title and explicitly being about a metal drummer, I can't pretend this is a particularly metal movie. I mean, I will give them credit, they didn't tone it down. This isn't the safe, approachable metal you hear in a lot of movies. This is actually loud and aggressive, and it still won several Oscars. I also can't pretend I liked this movie as much as everyone else did. Like, it's good, don't get me wrong, Riz Ahmed and Paul Raci both give great performances, and the story is genuinely heartfelt. But personally, I could have stood for a faster pace. I think the movie kinda drags. That's really my only critique, though. This one's pretty good. Although, if you're looking for something fun and silly to throw on for Metalween, this is probably the wrong choice. But I couldn't not put it on the list, you know? Let's move on to something fun.
Ruben! Ruben! Stop it!
I cannot die. Not until I fulfill my destiny and lay waste to your home.
You know, it's funny you should mention that, because I've been having these terrible dreams of late. Asgard up in flames, falling to ruins, and you, Surtur, are at the center of all of them.
We all know Vikings are pretty metal, but good Viking movies are hard to come by. Even most films about the great god Thor kinda suck. Luckily for us, the great, when he's directing, not necessarily when he's acting, Taika Waititi gave us a Thor movie full of monsters, aliens, and heavy metal. Yeah, MCU bad, but if you've got something more metal than the God of Thunder descending from the heavens and beating the shit out of some dudes to the sounds of Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song, I'd love to hear it. Also, again probably thanks to Waititi, this is easily the best non-James Gunn MCU movie since the original Iron Man. It's funny, the action isn't complete ass, in fact some of it's pretty good, and it doesn't derail itself to set up other movies. That's a pretty basic thing all movies should do, but it's kind of where we're at with superhero movies. Thor Ragnarok is just an all-around solid movie, in spite of its association with lesser films. It's a load of fun, and it's metal as hell.
For Asgard.
Metal till I fucking puke.
All right, okay, that's not what I expected, but fine choices.
What did you expect? The Dave Matthews Band?
In the early 90s, Norwegian black metal band Mayhem made waves when lead singer Euronymous was killed by bandmate Varg Vikernes. The band was already the subject of several controversies, and this incident and the ensuing media frenzy have become the basis for innumerable documentaries and biopics. But Varg Vikernes is a piece of shit and his story is played out, so fuck all that, we're talking about the 2017 movie Mayhem, which does reference the band in the form of a sticker. Otherwise, this is the story of an office infected by a strange new disease that make people hyper-violent. And wouldn't you know, it's the building of a law firm that defended a man who killed people while infected. So everyone in the building knows whatever they do under lockdown is legally permissible. And as expected, shit gets nuts. So yeah, this movie has a pretty similar plot to The Belko Experiment, a film that released around the same time. Granted, I don't think there's any theft going on, this is just part of the odd phenomenon of twin movies. And while I enjoyed The Belko Experiment, I think Mayhem is the better movie. The characters have a clearer arc, and it has a message I really like. Plus, I think it goes a little crazier with the violence, and there's a stronger attempt at a unique style. Granted, that style doesn't always land, but when it does, it's so fucking cool. And it is decidedly the more metal of the two movies, as the female lead, Melanie, played by Hugo Weaving's niece, is a huge metalhead, and that love of metal forms the backbone of the film's soundtrack. This is an underrated gem, and I highly encourage you to check it out.
This fucking phone doesn't work!
This is but a small example of what I am capable of. His eternal pain will take his mind beyond the furthest reaches of madness, preserved in an endless state of
Psycho Gorman. No, I will not stop talking about Psycho Gorman. This movie is a masterpiece and everyone needs to see it. It's like they reached deep down in the depths of my soul and pulled out exactly the movie I wanted to see. Combining elements of cosmic horror, heavy metal comics, classic 70s and 80s horror, and E.T., it's the story of a powerful alien unearthed from his tomb by an unhinged little girl who now possesses a stone that gives its wielder power over him, much to the dismay of not just the alien himself, but those who sought to keep him buried. It's violent, it's funny, and it's metal as all hell. And it's loaded with great practical effects, something sorely lacking in modern horror. Honestly, the movie is almost worth watching for the effects alone. Luckily, everything else about the movie rocks too, so high marks all around for this one. It's not only an extremely metal movie, but also perhaps the most matte movie there ever has been.
I need your advice. A huge battle between evil and worse evil is about to go down. And I have a very big decision to make. What shade should I wear? That's a trick question. I know I'm gonna wear the zebra ones. In conclusion, why am I even talking to you? There's a new god in town, and his name is Psycho Gorman. And he's coming for you, buddy.
He predicted a whole mess of things that have come true.
Such as?
Such as, for example, the discovery of Neptune and Uranus, Hitler, world wars, the coming of the demons.
Big deal, that hasn't happened.
Not yet.
Okay, we've had plenty of modern films on the list. Films that either came out after the last video was made, or were so recent it's kinda fair not to know about them. Let's talk glaring oversights. Like, how about a movie of people trapped in a theater with demons, set to the sounds of Saxon, Motley Crue, and Billy Idol? Yeah, I know Billy Idol isn't metal, but you know what? He still rocks. And so does this fucking movie, man. I'm talking about Demons from Lamberto Bava, whose father, Mario Bava, also happens to be the father of Italian horror, made with help from his father's friend and protege, Dario Argento, making it an Italian horror staple. Just an absolutely nuts film that delivers on so much of what you'd want from a concept like this. The film even has a sequel, and also several films that were written to be sequels but were later released as unrelated movies because Italy is just weird about sequels. What more do I say? People go to a horror movie, demons attack, Motley Crue plays. Oh, and I guess I could mention the guy riding around on a motorcycle killing demons. Oh yeah, this movie is fucking metal.
Púdrete en el infierno.
Day of the Beast. Speaking of oversights, 1995's Dia de la Bestia, or Day of the Beast, is a hidden masterpiece. Spanish horror doesn't seem to get a lot of credit, but this is easily their best output. It's about a priest who commits to a life of sin and vice so Satan will invite him to the birth of the Antichrist on Christmas Day 1995. How can you not love that? Along the way, he teams up with a metalhead record store owner who tells him about Satanicus, a local metal band who ends up being key in locating the Antichrist. He also enlists the help of a TV psychic, and together they drink blood mixed with acid. That's where this movie's going. Seriously, you guys, I love this movie so much, and I am not alone. Guillermo del Toro is such a fan, he's even cast the metalhead Santiago Segura in several of his films, and even the film star Alex Angulo appears in Pan's Labyrinth. I think the only real negative is some bad blue screen near the end of the film. It was 95, they have no excuse for this. But I don't know, it's one bad effect in an otherwise flawless movie, we'll let it slide. If you're looking for an offbeat movie with tons of satanic antics, trippy visuals, a priest being evil in fun ways instead of the usual ways priests are evil, and full of rip-rockin' satanic metal to boot, look no further than this classic of Spanish cinema.
Sí, eso es lo del catecismo, ¿no? Yo es que di ética, ¿sabes? Ya ves dónde estoy.
¿Puedo oír este, por favor?
Fuerte, ¿eh?
No sé, esa madre. ¿Puede ponérmelo al revés, por favor?
Sí, me sé.
So what you play?
Symphonic post-apocalyptic reindeer grinding Christ abusing extreme war pagan Fennoscandic metal.
Heavy Trip. Weird that Scandinavia, the home of so much metal, hasn't had a proper entry on either of these lists. So here's Heavy Trip to fix that for us. The story of Finnish metal band Impaled Rectum. The film sees the band deal with romance, hate from their small town, the loss of a bandmate, getting the perfect album cover, and of course, traveling across the continent to get to Northern Damnation, the biggest metal festival in Europe. Heavy Trip is fun, charming, humorous, heartfelt, and yes, metal. This movie rocks so hard. I hate to stack these films against each other, but I think it's kind of the better version of Metal Lords. Just the story of some quirky misfits trying to get by as a metal band. Except this time, it's a million times less predictable, a bit more epic in scale, and free of any sort of embarrassing moments. Those Scandinavians are always upstaging us when it comes to metal. It maybe goes on longer than it needs to be, but honestly, I don't know what you could cut. So just enjoy the film for the weird madness that it is. This film is rapidly approaching cult movie status, and I am all in for it. So hop on the Heavy Trip bandwagon with me, folks. We're headed to Northern Damnation.
Onks sä ihan tyhmä? Meidän soundi, saatana!
When I seen them things, they were in a world of pain. But you know what the freakiest part was?
What's that?
They fucking loved it.
Mandy. Mandy. Mandy, 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 Mandy. Mandy, 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 Mandy. Holy shit, watch Mandy! We are living in a Nick Cage renaissance, and Mandy is not only the catalyst for that renaissance, but the best thing it has produced. It's like heavy metal, but only the good parts. Told with very little dialogue, we see Cage and his wife Mandy as hippies living out in the woods when a gang of Satanists pull up to torment them and kill Mandy, so Cage goes on a revenge spree. It sounds pretty standard. Hell, there are 3 other movies where Nick Cage goes up against a satanic cult. But the music and visuals make it not only the best, but also the most unique of the bunch. This is the best looking horror film in decades. Seriously, do not sleep on this one. This is a film that will have a place in people's hearts and minds long into the future. This is a masterpiece of modern cinema. I'm not exaggerating, I'm not making a joke, this movie is brilliant. If you watch one movie on this list, it needs to be this one. Make more movies like Mandy. Even the failed attempts are interesting. And if all that wasn't enough, this movie also gave us Cheddar Goblin.
Cheddar Goblin! Did you eat all the macaroni and cheese? Nothing's better than cheddar. Cheddar Goblin.
Has 60% more cheese than the next leading brand.
And now some honorable mentions. Color Out of Space. Sure, it's Lovecraftian, sure the daughter's a Satanist who listens to metal, but it just feels so redundant when you've already got Mandy on the list. Phenomena. I hope when I'm murdered, someone rolls up just blasting Motorhead like they do in this movie. Tetsuo the Iron Man. Very literal interpretation of the word metal there, but it's loud and chaotic enough that it kind of fits both definitions of the word. The Northman. Finally, a kick-ass Viking movie. Fuck yeah. Tales from the Crypt presents Bordello of Blood. I don't know how you make Corey Feldman metal, but this movie found a way. And that brings us to the final entry on the list.
The goat has free will, and for that reason he will always be punished by the oppressor God.
Praise Jesus!
God must die. God is the unholy pig, We serve the butcher.
Rob Zombie got his start as a metal musician, first for his band White Zombie and later as a solo artist. However, he would break into filmmaking with movies like House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects, films I like but I understand are not everyone's thing. Eventually, he would have the clout to make a duology of films based on John Carpenter's Halloween, which are utter shit. Do not let Twitter users butthurt about the new Halloween movies fool you. These movies were not secretly good the whole time. The characters are unbearably obnoxious to the point the film is nigh unwatchable. Which is too bad because there is actually a lot he did well in these films. And all of those positives would be brought with him to his next project, Lords of Salem. People understandably didn't take stock of the film. It's from the guy who made those awful Halloween movies? No thanks. But we were all wrong. Lords of Salem is brilliant, and dare I say, ahead of its time? The film follows radio DJ Heidi Hawthorne, of course played by Zombie's wife, Sherry Moon Zombie. A nepotistic pick, but she's pretty good in the role, so we'll let him have this one. She receives a mysterious record from a group called the Lords of Salem, and afterwards, strange things begin happening in her life. As it's slowly revealed, she's being inducted into a coven of witches. Following this film, several other artsy, cerebral, witchy movies got made. Stuff like The Witch, Hereditary, or Suspiria. And I think Lords of Salem goes toe-to-toe with any of those movies. It did it first, and if you're leaving it out of the conversation, shame on you. This film is beautifully shot, suspensefully written, well acted, the effects are excellent, and it probably goes without saying, but it sure is fucking metal. A movie from the man behind Dragula about a mysterious satanic record? You bet your ass this is the most metal movie I neglected to talk about last time. Please, join me in the cult of Lords of Salem and get this movie the recognition it truly deserves.
Are you alright? Are you cool?
Breed this new world with the blessed spawn of your glory.
And that's 11 more metal movies to get you through Metalween. And if that's not enough, I'll link a list in the description with 666 metal movies on it. How about that? Obviously, let me know your favorite metal movies down in the comments, and until next time, rock on and have a very happy Metalween.